A lot has been said about corruption in Zimbabwe. More recently, songs have been made and danced to. But still, very little has actually been done about it. Most Zimbabweans know, or at the very least have heard about the Willowgate scandal of 1988. But what most don't know is that it was Obet Mpofu who actually blew the whistle on the operation, which is pretty ironic considering that Obet Mpofu is now one of the most I don't know what happened, but I think I heard my ancestor saying, lawsuit, lawsuit, lawsuit. Thanks, Vanashumba. Our focus today is on the mathematics behind the rampant corruption in Zimbabwe. We stay pointing fingers at each other. At some point, even Satan was blamed. But could it be that we are just a nation of corrupt people? Ladies and gentlemen, war vets and unfocused youth, welcome to another episode of Properganda with Kandoro. There is two types of corruption scandals in Zimbabwe. The most common one is there is money meant for a national program and that money disappears. Then you have the slightly more complicated corruption cases like the Zamco CBZ non-performing loan scandal. There's a little bit more math involved in this kind of corruption, but the long and short of it is mari inenge yadyiwa and the country is poorer for it. In 1982, businessman Samson Paweni saw the effects of the drought and thought he bribed his way into a tender to transport drought relief across the country. The country lost about $6 million to Paweni. Mangunja wasn't even in the picture yet, so those were real dollars. The Paweni scandal officially opened the corruption floodgates in Zimbabwe. Since then, we've had the NRZ housing scandal, the Zisco Steel blast furnace scandal, the Air Zim Foka scandal, the Willowgate scandal, the Santana Gate scandal, the War Vets Fund scandal, the Harare City Council refuse scandal, the Boka banking scandal, the GMB scandal of 1985, the GMB scandal of 1995, the GMB scandal of 1999, the VIP housing loan scandal, the Noxim scandal, the DRC diamond scandal, the Harare airport scandal, the salary gate scandal, the ZESA PME scandal, the ZESA Chivayo scandal, the NASA scandal, the Chiadza scandal, the Command Agriculture scandal, the Corona Gate scandal. This is not even the full list. For the past 40 years, ZANU-PF has been averaging at least 2 major scandals per year. Not even Donald Trump has those kind of numbers. At best, it's a tie. This year, we've already had Henrietta Rushwaya teaching us that once beaten, use your driver. This woman is literally going out of her way to show us that she deserves this year's corruption Ballon d'Or. And we still have 6 more months of the year left. So you know the boys at that Shake building have something special cooking for us.
Right. Can someone tell me what these words mean? Can someone tell me my words are about board? What are these words that are on the board? That's right. That's correct. Apana ziripo apa. Apana, there is no words on the board. We don't recognize. I am a words. The last person whistleblower. Ari kuvudza munhu. Kwatenda mbuya. Ndoko ari kuridzira muridzi wake.
The problem is we have very weak institutions. Most government departments have a legacy of corruption. Those who take over assume that it's standard operating procedure. In 2018, Douglas Tapfuma, a senior civil servant in the office of the president, imported several vehicles for personal use but stated to Zimra that he was doing so on behalf of his office. When he was brought before the court, Tapfuma argued that he had found this policy in place when he joined the department. He actually said that in court. This guy was more bothered by the fact that he had been singled out If you've ever visited a government office, you would know that the moment an honorable emerges, life stops. The whole department turns into praise and worship. It's such undue fear and respect which creates fertile ground for systemic corruption. People begin making questionable decisions because those supposed to provide checks and balances are busy quaking in their boots. Those meant to protect the public like the ZRP end up protecting criminals just because those criminals hold high offices.
Inspector Kosei, kana vari vanhu veMDC vari kuita kunge vari kungoenda kujeri straight, but vanhu veZANU-PF vanoita kunge pane kaliwe kari granted. Why pane kamusiyano ikako?
Why is that, Inspector?
What is your name?
Tatenda.
That's a stupid question, Tatenda. Concept of ruling party muri kunyatsonzwisisa here. Concept of ruling party unzwisisa here. Muda kuti ruling party neopposition zvibatanidzwe. Treatment yevanhu vari ruling party, ruling yofanana nevanhu vari muopposition.
But
hanzvida kupikiswa. Saka mabenefits achina oita pai. Mabenefits achina angati pai kana tikavabata zvakafanana. For a very long time, Varakashi have used sanctions as a rebuttal against government corruption. But more recently, they have started saying things like, well, everyone is corrupt anyway. Given the opportunity, we are all corrupt. And that's where things get a little tricky for us. Because as tough as it is to admit, there is actually some truth in that. Granted, ZANU-PF has tried to personalize corruption, as they do everything else. But they are not the only ones performing in these corruption Olympics. Many opposition party members have been fingered in shady dealings, both at national and council level. In 2020, residents of Kariba found out that their mayor, an MDC Alliance member, had also been included on the list of vulnerable people and was due to receive funds meant for food insecure households. Imagine. Kananyadzi. Even in the church, corruption is not far from the pulpit. Not long ago, an accountant within the AFM church was accused of embezzling over 26,000 of the Lord's money. And if we are being honest, we've all participated in some form of corruption at some point. You don't think you're corrupt until you're at that Makumbe building and the guy at the gate says, Sabugundian?
I want you to look kune munhu ari paside newe. Look them in the eyes. Umbvunze kuti akawana license yake sei. Mubvunze kuti license yake chitambi akachiwana sei. Mese makadhiza. Hallelujah. Kana inini mese makadhiza imimi.
The question then becomes, are all acts of corruption equal? Is DJ Biscuit embezzling 60 million of COVID-related funds the same as this Blawayo woman using a fake police ID to collect bribes from Kombi drivers? Are we as Zimbabweans inherently corrupt? The answer to both questions is absolutely not. And it's intellectually dishonest to argue otherwise. ZANU-PF created and has maintained a system that is rigged to reward a very, very, very small minority. Here's an example. In 2020, Nick Mangwana was amongst top government officials who were awarded residential plots of land in Mutare. When quizzed about it, Nick Mangwana alleged that he had applied for land just like every other citizen. But the facts are, Nick Mangwana has only been in government for less than 4 years. And every other citizen has been on that waiting list for at least a decade. Mangwana doesn't even stay in Mutare. And that's how systemic corruption works. On the other hand, you have the majority of citizens struggling daily because of government systems that are deliberately inefficient. Systems that are clearly put in place to frustrate and leave them with no option but to try and circumvent them, just so they can gain access to some of the most basic amenities. Take a look at the passport office. People who applied for their passports in 2019 and thought they were high and mighty to pay bribes are only getting them now, in 2021. Put simply, ZANU-PF is commercializing our anxiety. The fight against corruption is made to appear more complicated than it actually is. We have the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission under Justice Lois Matonda Moyo. We have the Special Anti-Corruption Commission led by Tabani Mpofu. We have the Anti-Corruption Department in the Zimbabwe Republic Police. All these departments are well-staffed, they have premises, and of course, they have vehicles. I mean, all this effort, but there's only been 2 high-profile convictions. Actually, more like 1.5 because this guy doesn't count. It's even more shocking when you find out that every year the Auditor General produces annual reports which give insights into how public funds are being utilized. These reports explain in great detail where the corruption happened, how it happened, and who was involved. You would think this makes it a slam dunk for anyone who's trying to fight corruption, right? Well, you're wrong. But enough is enough. We demand a change. We want to see the commissions and courts capacitated to deal with corruptions on all levels. That means making sure that our judges are equipped with relevant education, such as tax law. We demand transparency in how public funds are spent, and even more transparency in cases against those accused of misusing these public funds. We demand institutions that protect and reward whistleblowers. More importantly, we demand that the government makes it easier for its citizens to live. Replacing an ID shouldn't be a process that we pray to our ancestors for. Anyone who argues that corruption is the same and therefore we are a nation of corrupt people is a liar and a coward. Because a citizen who pays extra to get their passport early will never be on the same level as a government minister defrauding NASA of over $60 million. Both are reprehensible acts, but it's very important to note that the former only exists because of the latter. Give the citizens a chance. Stop seeing national disasters as business opportunities. Fix the country and check if anyone will ever pay to jump a queue. Probably not, because if you fix the country, there won't be any queues. This has been another episode of Propaganda with Kandoro, and if everything goes well, I'll catch you guys next week.